So you're doing this stuff with Jay Ward. You obviously are feeling very happy creatively. Rocky and Bullwinkle is a huge success. I know that the power of television was really exemplified by Bullwinkle telling the kids at the end of the first episode, pull the knob off the TV so your parents can't change the channel, and 150,000 phone calls come in flooding the switchboard saying that's the wrong thing to tell our children, they just pulled the knob off our TV. So you're onto something big there. You're working with these great talents. Jay Ward obviously has a lot of clout now with the networks, and he finishes with Rocky and Bullwinkle, so he goes on to do other shows that you're obviously going to be involved in. And what did you think about that? I mean, he does George of the Jungle, and he does Super Chicken.
Ursula.
He does the Captain Crunch. How did you?
Brunhild.
Did you enjoy doing that?
Oh, it was ridiculous having to be paid for this because we were having such fun. Most of the times, we'd be telling jokes, or Paul would be bantering with Bill Conrad because they had known each other for years.
That'd be Paul Frees.
Paul Frees, yeah.
So just bear with me. Paint me a picture of a typical Jay Ward recording session. How would it go?
Usually we would start about 5:30 or
PM?
6.
At night?
At night, because Jay liked to keep office hours.
Okay, and where did you record?
The first time we recorded was, it was right near Santa Monica Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
I've forgotten what the name of it was. But then we went over to Sunset Boulevard.
Okay.
For the later ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it was TV recorders. We started off at the one on Romaine Street. It finally moved to Paramount. I've forgotten the name of the place.
That's okay.
I've got to
That's
look
general
at it.
area.
Yeah.
That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
So you'd get there around 5:36.
Yeah.
And
then we'd tell jokes. And then Jay would say, okay, let's read it through. We'd read it through once. And he'd say, okay, let's record. So the only time we had to ever do a pickup or do it again, we had to make it in 3 minutes and 2 seconds.
oh, you're kidding.
And each segment, because there were several segments. There were 2 Bullwinkle segments and a Fractured Fairy Tale or a George of the...
or Aesop and Son.
Dudley Do Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And then we sort of lingered on and just yacked and laughed and then went home.
Now, when the guys were recording, were they like smoking a cigarette, or would they have a drink? Were they comfortable?
Oh, no.
No, so it was very straightforward. You had to just do it, and then you'd have your spare time after that.
Well, we would joke first
Oh,
until Jay would say, okay, let's record it.
So we get everybody in a proper frame of mind.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Well, Jay always loved to laugh anyway, and so we all just told jokes. And
Do you think that's why his cartoons are so different than the other studio stuff? Because they have a joie de vivre that the other pictures
yes, yeah,
aspire to but can't really get,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it's a one-man operation that has less...
Well, Bill Scott was the head writer.
Right. And so he was able to reflect what Jay wanted. And
Absolutely.
that's just marvelous to think about that.
Yeah.
All right, so you're doing that, and like I was talking to you about a couple weeks ago, how I caught you on PBS. You were in The Death of a Salesman. How did the live action stuff come about?
I have no idea.
You just
Because I did some off-camera things, and so they said, well, you might as well be on camera as well.
And how did you feel about that?
Oh, I thought it was great.
Sure.
I did, I was on camera for the Red Skelton show several times. And the last thing I did was Green Acres.
Yes, you were the Mexican phone operator
I
with
was
the
the
red...
Mexican girl, and she was so mad, because she was peeking at the fields, she's peeking all kinds of vegetables and fruits and things. And so I've been doing a lot of things like that, and so it was very funny.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, you had that red wig on with the pigtails.
Long black wig.
Black wig.
It was a black wig, darling. Yeah. And it was fun to do.
Hello? El presidente?
See,
I tried the 3x2. He's not Mr. Ziffel, he's Mr. Miller.
you told me you knew how to run a switchboard.
You think you could run the board better?
You're darn right I could. Hello?
And, but memorizing lines, that it was okay then. But then I thought, gee, what if I can't remember the lines anymore? And so I've turned down a lot of shows on camera. Because it's so easy to just go into a recording studio and sit down in front of a microphone. I'm out in about an hour and make a lot of money, and so I just don't feel like.
Well, it's a
doing that
familiar
again.
friend to you. Let's face it. You've been doing it for so many years, and
Yeah.
you're so comfortable doing it. That's your medium. I mean, that's what you work with now. So you did some live action stuff throughout your career, but you've stayed active in animation for forever. Now you finished with Jay Ward, and now what are you doing? Like mid '60s, late '60s, the animation business is kind of in flux. You work for Hanna Barbera. I know that you do stuff for Joe and Bill.
Yeah.
And
I worked for them when they were out at MGM.
I was going to say, you knew
I
them
did for
before
Tom
they
and
were
Jerry.
Hanna Barbera.
Yeah.
You knew them when they were just a couple directors at
Right, I
MGM. You're doing stuff. You knew Bill and Joe at MGM, and
Tex Avery.
tell me, just give me an idea. What was Tex Avery like to work with? What was he?
You know, his wonderful cartoons are outrageous, but he himself was a very modest, introverted person, and I don't know how he was with the people he worked with, but as far as I was concerned, he was very serious.
I've always heard a very sad story about Tex Avery, who is one of my idols, and that is that when in the later years of his career, when he was over at Hanna Barbera, he had an office, and nobody would go there because they were all so intimidated by his name and by who he was, and that he would have liked nothing better than for someone to come in just to go have a hamburger with him, because he was such a quiet, unassuming person, which
I know.
to me sounds so sweet because of those cartoons, which were his cartoons were so unique compared to everybody else's, which were all very, very well done, but his were so wild and manic, and had such a they really understood what the cartoon form was. You know, they just were so crazy. So it's great to hear that he was such an interesting guy and so quiet.
Yes, he was.
And he always knew what he wanted, I imagine, when you'd work with him.
Well, everybody was so cooperative that it just amazes me that I just love people in animation because they are faultless in their ingenuousness, their intelligence, their abilities. It never ceases to amaze me how. That's why I love animation, and that's why I've worked so hard for animation.
I was just going to ask you that. So you obviously love animation, as you just said, and you've proven by your...
And I've got to give back.
Well, I
because
mean,
everybody's
you were the
so
one that
wonderful
really
to me.
saved a SIFA, correct? I mean, you had the big garage sale, I guess we could call it, here at your house.
The cell sale.
That's
the
right,
original
selling
cell.
cells.
And I created the Annie Awards.
Created the Annie Awards. Now, what made you think of the Annie Awards? How'd you come up with that?
Because there were Oscars, there were Tonys, there were Emmys, and nothing for animation.
And why do you think that is? The studios have always kind of looked down their noses at animation, and it's a big money
We were
maker
always
for them.
second-class citizens.
Why?
I don't understand it, because maybe there weren't big stars. Bugs Bunny was a big star.
Right, but you didn't know who Chuck Jones was.
No.
But now we know who Chuck Jones is, and he's passed away.
And if it weren't for me and Bill Littlejohn, finally Carl Bell, and Bill Scott, and for over a decade, we fought to get an Oscar for feature films.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally did.
Finally.
Last year.
It just always strikes me as so strange that because animation has played such a big part in film, and you go anywhere in the world and people know Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny or Tom and Jerry, And
Absolutely.
it defies, it transcends, not defies,
Yes.
it transcends
Yes.
language.
Yes.
But it's
does.
always been just it's a poor sister here in the business. But maybe it's because, like you said, the people are so ingenuous and so unassuming and self-effacing. Maybe they don't draw attention to themselves or demand. Maybe they don't care about the accolades. Maybe that's what it is. Or they
I
never
don't
thought
think they
about it.
did. They just wanted to do what they felt comfortable with, what they were talented in, and they just, I don't think they thought about fame.
Exactly.
They were good artists, and they knew that they could cartoon, and that's what they wanted to do, and it was a job.
Yeah. It paid money and it entertained people. That's really what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And when you look back now, I mean, you're still active in the business, of course.
Oh, you know, when I think of Spider-Man, I did Spider-Man and his friends. I played Aunt May in the series. and Teen Wolf. Those were some of the earlier
That's right.
things that I did.
And did you enjoy doing them as much as doing Rocky and Bullwinkle? Or
I
just
always enjoy it. You know,
Yeah.
people always ask me, what's your favorite role? And yet I can't say what is, because there's a little bit of me in everything. I don't know about that one. You know?
I got to ask you then, do you have a least favorite thing you ever did? Is there something that you wish you hadn't done?
I don't think so.
That's a wonderful thing to be able to say.
Sometimes if I look at something, I say, gee, maybe I could have read that line a little better or something, you know. But
Oh, yeah.
I think this is indicative of any performer or even a writer. You know, why did I do that scene right? Or maybe I could have done this a little. But I'm happy with all the things, and the ones that I've seen, that I've taped, I'm very happy with. And I say, gee, I guess I was a good actress after all, you know, when I was young.
Fantastic. No, a fantastic actress. I mean, a natural ability, too. That's the thing that's wonderful. It's not forced. You know, Frank Welker, when we were doing the Sylvester and Tweety show, told me a wonderful story about you, and maybe you could do the voice when I tell you this. And that was, he said that when he first came to Hollywood, was doing voice-over work, and Frank's tremendous talent in his own right. He said that when he first learned he was going to do a project with June Foray, he was very excited because he was going to work with the woman who had the really sexy voice that was doing the Bandini commercials. And
Bandini is the word for fertilizer.
exactly. And so when he got to the studio and you had your back to him, I guess somebody had clued you in. And so when he came up and he says, "Hi, Miss Foray, my name is Frank Welker," and you turned around and you did your, "How you doing, Toots?"
I think I first met Frank when we did Spider-Man and his friends. That's when I first met
He couldn't
him.
believe it. It was just this cute little lady and this deep, gruff voice comes out of, "How you doing, Toots?" You have a wonderful sense of humor, and I think that's another.
It helps.
It's another gift, and
It
it
helps.
comes out in your work.
You know what? I keep thinking that I'm not a comedian who acts. I'm an actor who does comedy,
I think you're right.
because as an actor, when you have a snapper on the end of a joke, you have 1 second of pause, and then you pull the snapper, and it's timing. It's really timing, and I think as an actor you learn these things. So I love doing comedy. I mean, you know, that's a funny voice, and I've always used it for comedy, you know.
It sure is.
I used it as Goofy's wife at Disney's.
Mm-hmm.
I've used it as Daffy Duck's wife at Warner Brothers,
That's right.
and Yosemite Sam's wife, and that was one of Jay Ward's favorite voices, and the Brooklyn. Brooklyn was one of Jay's favorites, you know. Because we do 5 fractured fairy tales in the night, and 5 Bullwinkles in the night, 5 Aesop's fables in the night, and I'd be doing Brooklyn Princess, and I'd say, you know, I've done 3 or 4. Do you want another? No, do the Brooklyn Princess.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's funny, and it fits the characters.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It really fits the character. It's perfect. It's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to wrap our time up together. I'm going to ask you, do you have any last thoughts or anything you'd like to say just about your career in general?
I'm very grateful for everything that animation has given me. I'm glad that I was born with a certain talent that my mother and father gave me. I'm really proud of some of the things that I've done to help animation, like getting an Oscar for the feature animated films and leaving this short films branch at the Academy because they say, oh, well, you know, films aren't being shown anymore in theaters, but they are. They're being shown in art houses and museums and so forth. And so I'm proud of those things, but I'm certainly grateful for people like you and other people in animation who have hired me and have faith in my ability.
Well, you're a wonderful human being, and it's said genuinely. I really do appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. And
Even
share
my
your life.
dog likes me.